students. Today is our Independent Learning Day, and what we're going to go over is what we're looking for in Chapter 4. So, your homework for this week is to read Chapter 4 and do sticky notes. This week, I've decided to help you out a little bit because I think sticky notes are kind of getting the best of us. And since you just took the quiz, or you're about to take the quiz, you're going to realize how important sticky notes are, especially when it comes to our learning and understanding of things. So, I want to explain to you by first showing you my book. Again, I am reading along with you guys. So these are not anything more than what I have for up through Chapter 4. Now, you'll see this is the second half of my book. I have no sticky notes except for the ones I put in the back that I talked about earlier, which just gave me a difference between the socias and the greasers, just so I had a clear understanding of that. And that's why I say sticky notes placed in different places can really come in useful, especially as we do a summative or a formative. Now, I took some pretty, big sticky notes on each person in Chapter 1, which we went over. And then in Chapter 2, we talked about, what happened with the meeting of the girls at the drive-ins. And Chapter 3 is all about what happens after the movie and what happens with Ponyboy and Cherry, and what happens with the foreshadowing. We talked a lot about foreshadowing. And that's going to come into play on our summative. And so when I point out these things either in class or on our independent learning days, it's really important for you guys to take note of that, because I'm not saying it just because I want to hear myself talk. I really want you to understand that it's a big part of reading a story. As any story, whether it's for fun, just like in movies, you're always guessing like, what does that mean? Could that be telling us that something is going to, come up? Just like if you're watching a horror movie and, you notice that they go into a house and it's on a vacant road and it's dark, or it's lit up and then the lights go out, you automatically get that shiver that you have some idea that something bad is going to happen. Well, that's how an author tells us things are going to happen, by using the ellipsis, the ... to get you to think about what could happen, or phrases such as in Chapter 3, at the end of Chapter 3, where we kind of, pointed out those foreshadowing circumstances. When we looked at page 52, and Johnny says, okay, and then Ponyboy thinks, things got to get better. I figured they couldn't get worse. I was wrong. So he says that right here at the end of Chapter 3, and that's foreshadowing. He was wrong. So he's telling us he was wrong, which means we know something worse is going to happen. And that's setting us up to let us know that that's going to happen. Now, for Chapter 4, you want to know what in particular I want you to focus on. Now, in Chapter 4, we're going to talk about the plot and how a plot moves us along in the story, and how we sort of go up this sort of rising action climax, and then we are at our hilt, and then how it drops and what happens and how we culminate and finish it, especially when it comes with conflict. And right now we have a lot of conflict happening. What I want you to do specifically, and now what I've done for you to sort of help you along, is I have created sticky note directions, which I'm going to attach to this video lesson. So those who aren't watching the lesson are just going to, see these directions, and they're going to think, oh, I'll just do it without listening to the lesson. And that's not really going to help you at all. So you have to watch the video. But I'm going to attach it to this lesson. And what it is the sticky note Chapter 4 sticky note directions. And I gave an example of how your sticky note should look. Now, I don't want you to have to write this much in a sticky note, but for me to be able to show it to you, I had to write it like this. What I did, and these over here are what you're going to answer, or you're going to look for these these 9 things happening in chapter 4, and that's where your sticky notes are going to go. So for example, number 1, this is an extra one that I'm putting in here that I'd like you to use, but you don't need to put this much information. And it says, what does Ponyboy see when he recovers consciousness? Now, if this was up here, which it was, then I decided to do it for you. We know that this is happening on page 56. So right here, this is the sticky side that's going to go inside your book, along with all of this part. And this right here is going to stick out on page 56. And what it says, and if you look closely, you can see, it says Pony and Johnny after the fight with the Socias. So that's right there. That should be the part that's sticking out of your book that you can find information on. And the question was, what does Ponyboy see when he recovers consciousness? Page 56. So I actually gave the whole quote. You don't need to know that. You don't need to do the whole quote. You could have just written, Johnny. But in order for me to explain it to you, I wanted to make sure it's written all out. So someone who's just reading this is going to think they have to do all of this for the sticky note. Someone who's listening to this lesson is going to understand you don't need to. So I use the quote, which it says right here. I finally pushed myself up and leaned back against the fountain, the water running down my face. Then I saw Johnny. He was sitting next to me, one elbow on his knee, and staring straight ahead. He was a strange greenish white, and his eyes were huger than I'd ever seen them. So that's the quote that answers it. But all you would need to write is, he sees Johnny. That's the first thing he sees when he recovers consciousness. So that's important because that would come up on maybe your next summative, or it will be up on your formative. So all of that is really, really important. And it's something that you're going to want to make sure that you are following along. Now, I do ask you 9 different things to look for. I'm going to ask you for, what does Bob say a greaser is? So you're going to put the page number that you find that, and that's where you're going to stick your sticky note. Okay, just like I put down here, I put page 56. You're going to want to put what page you find these on. And then what does Ponyboy say is Socias? So they're going back and forth, which is showing this conflict. What do the Socias do to Ponyboy? They do something specific. They don't just beat him up. They do something specific. I want you to mark what that is on your sticky note. Why did Johnny attack Bob? Where do Johnny and Ponyboy go when they leave the park? What does Dally give Johnny and Ponyboy? Where does Dally tell them to go? How do they get there? And how do they find the church? So those are all really specific things that you're going to find throughout reading the story, the chapter 4. And what this is going to do is going to give us some insight into what's going on in their heads, how they feel, and what I want on your sticky notes. So this is the first part that is going to help you make your sticky notes. So that is read chapter 4 and do your sticky notes. Okay, this is going to be attached. Then the second section that I did is right here, and it's about chapter 4, and it's about the plot. Now the plot is what moves the story along. Now you don't have to fill this out, but it would be helpful because it's something that we're going to go over. I take that back. I do want you to fill it out as best as you can. Doesn't need to be fully filled out. You might not even get it all. But what I want you to do is I want you to fill it to the best of your ability. So the chapter 4 plot. Explain how each topic listed involves the characters and events from chapter 4. For example, number 1 is Blue Mustang. So we've covered this previously. Who drives the Blue Mustang? So you can answer that, the Socias. So it's going to give you more specifically what 2 people in the Soch gang are usually driving the Blue Mustang, or are usually found in the Blue Mustang. And so that's what you're going to want to put there. And what happened that involved the Blue Mustang in chapter 4 specifically. Bob's rings, which we know about previously, right? But what specifically in this chapter do we find out about these things? So there is a list of 6 things that I want you to look for. And I want you to just jot them down. I'm not looking for complete sentences. I'm not looking for anything other than to help you understand how this is moving the plot along. Then we're going to look for evidence. So this is a really interesting one because the question is going to be, when Pony and Johnny are in trouble, Pony tells us, the readers, because he's the narrator, remember, Dallas Winston could do anything. What specific evidence from this chapter supports Pony's statement? Now, you're going to remember that this is taking place in 1950, right? It's 1950. The event that starts at 2:30 in the morning. So Dally could do anything. What is he able to do in 1950? Not being wealthy, not having access to all of the different things that we have access to now, where Pony would say he could do anything. What is he able to give the boys that gave them the ability to do something and to get out of the situation that they find themselves in chapter 4? So I gave you 3 different bullet points to look for. If you can't find all 3, that's fine. If you can, awesome. It's going to really help us out when we go over it. So that's what I want you to look for. Now, that's your independent work for this week for me, is to do your chapter 4 reading, right? Your sticky notes, your 9 sticky notes, 10 if you also include mine. So you should have 10 sticky notes total for chapter 4. And then to start moving and writing down as you read, the plot and the evidence that supports what I'm asking. My suggestion will always be read the story, right? That way you can do the sticky notes. You're looking for specific information, right? So you can do these sticky notes with this specific information. You might even find, about the plot in that. But then go back and listen to the story on Audible so that you can pick up things that you might have missed. As you're looking for things and you're focusing on writing down the sticky notes, answering those questions, looking what the blue Mustang has to do, thinking about the evidence of Dally, you might miss some of the information because you're focused on a certain place. But when you listen to the story, you're able to enjoy it and you're able to pick up on things you weren't able to pick up on the second time. That's why it's always better. So if you to read something once, read it twice. Now you guys don't have to read it twice, but you can read it once. You can listen to it once and you're going to be able to pick up on it. And that's what you want to see. And that's what you want to understand as we go forward, because it's going to get going faster. This chain of events that sets off in chapter 4 is just like the train getting going. And as it picks up speed, it's going to go faster and faster. And so we're going to want to really hold on tight because everything's going to happen really fast. So that's your assignment. You've listened to this whole, independent lesson video. Now, in order to get the credit for turning it in, right? You can't just hit done, turned in. You need to respond with the phrase. Ready? This is your phrase. I want you to rephrase with, to respond in your assignment with the phrase, your name. So if I was the student, I would say, Susan Lewis went tubing at Gunstock over vacation. One thing I did over vacation. That's how I want you to respond. One thing you did over vacation. Watched a movie, read a book, played 5 hours of Among Us, whatever. I want you to respond to your name and what one thing you did over vacation. Okay? That's your ticket. So make sure you do this you have the entire week. I'm going to post it on Monday at 7:50 in the morning, and then do your reading, fill out the forms, and then I'll see you in class. So everyone, have a great one. Don't forget, in order to get credit, you have to put your name and one thing you did over vacation. Okay, bye guys.